Hi folks, welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. Thank you for tuning in as always. I appreciate you incorporating me into your day. Tell you a little bit about where I'm at right now. Today's kind of an interesting and fun episode. My guest on the show today is actor Paul Liberti. Now I met Paul because I took his intro to commercial voiceover class because I had a realization. Fans, I almost say I got to come up with a nickname for people who listen to this show. Maybe I'll call you the Awesome Disasters. So it's almost like we're a band, you know. And I'd had this realization recently that I came to the realization that I wanted to focus my energy on, and not only in doing this podcast and doing stand-up, but I also wanted to learn about doing voiceover work, and not just for commercials, but for animation eventually as well, because that's I decided was really going to bring me happiness in my life as far as this pursuing things I enjoy in the entertainment business. And I took a voiceover class with Paul earlier this year and come to learn that he has had an amazingly interesting and varied career, and he said he would come and talk about it on the show. And we just finished the conversation, and it is quite spectacular. I learned some things that I didn't quite know, and it was so interesting to find out that I've probably been seeing and hearing Paul Liberti in things for most of my adult life and my young adult life. So it was really cool. And if there's some incredible Jim Henson from the Muppet Stories that happen on this episode. So this is a really interesting and cool conversation, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. If you listen to this and you think you know someone else who might be interested in the show, feel free to tell a friend, and that helps grow the show, and I appreciate your help with growing the show. We are on iTunes and Stitcher. You can subscribe or add us to your favorites playlist. And again, if you know someone who you think might be into this, let them know. And if you hear this and you want me to come and do stand-up comedy in your city, I want to come do stand-up comedy in your city. So you can follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey, and we'll figure it out. So get at me, and I will come tell jokes in your city. Thank you guys again for tuning in. And let's go to my chat with my voiceover instructor and actor, Paul Liberti. At home I go into just an old analog mixer, and I use Blue Encore 200s. And I go right into a Zoom H4n, and then I just edit later. But these are the Michael Jackson Thriller microphones.
Oh wow!
So wow. These are these I consider some of the best mics in the industry, at least for what I like. So I like being able to talk on these and use the big boom stands and stuff.
Oh, very cool! Very cool.
So I wanted to tell you this. You haven't seen my desk here at the offices, but I have lined up on my desk all of the different evolutions of Eevee from Pokemon.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a lot of them, so they go down my entire desk. So you can imagine I was excited to find out.
Is it nearby?
It's down at the end of the hallway, so yeah.
Let's take a quick peek. I'd love to see it.
I will after we tape. I'll definitely show you. So you can imagine why I was excited to find out about some of your work.
Yeah,
when I took your voiceover class.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can be pretty much right on top of that.
Yep.
So one of the things I love, I remember most poignantly from your class is that story about you auditioning for Stephen Sondheim.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great story. Can you tell that?
Absolutely.
One?
I guess we're on the air. I guess you're going.
Yeah, I just kind of hit record and then start talking. I don't do any formal announcing.
Okay, as long as you don't mind, my dog is here. Hi there. That's not my dog. That's me. I happen to be a voice actor, and originally I started out in musical theater, and I remember about 1986, I auditioned for the original Into the Woods.
Oh wow!
And I had a couple callbacks. I was right for the role of Jack,
Uh-huh.
and they were looking for different sizes, and I was one of the smaller guys. And I remember I went in there, and Sondheim happened to be at one of the callbacks, and I was right in front of him singing for him one of the songs. And I remember became one of the versions of the song I had was an older version of it, but it became
Right.
Giants in the Sky. And I remember I was trying to sing the song, and I'm staring at this man, and my throat just went dry, and I couldn't spit, I
Right.
couldn't sing, I couldn't do anything. And he looked at me and went, "Well, you've been called back, so you must have some ability." So I remember he said, "Just stop singing." He said, "Forget the music and just say the words and give me the lyrics and just do them as a monologue." And so I started to say the words, "When you're way down small and you look way high and there's giants in the sky." And suddenly it became this incredible story. And then he said, "Now put the music back on it." And then I could sing the song, and suddenly I completely forgot who I was singing for. I completely got into the storytelling, and it taught me so much as an actor about how no matter what we do as voice actors, as singers, as dancers, we're storytellers. And that we
Yeah.
must always remember that what we do is in part a story and a character, and everything is character-based. And we're inside all those characters, truly. And so it affected my life, and it affected the way I teach to this day. And it was a pretty extraordinary experience. I didn't get the role, but
Uh-huh.
I really loved working and through that audition process. And it also taught me to love and embrace auditions.
Right.
At the time, I had a hard time auditioning. I usually would go in there going, "Oh, I hate auditions. I hate auditions." And I changed my vernacular, and I changed my wording, and anytime I said I'm so nervous, I'd say I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this audition. I'm so excited to go there. So excited to meet you. I'm so excited. It changed, my whole body changed when you say those words.
Yeah.
And so that became how I approached auditions, and suddenly I started working.
Uh-huh.
And it was amazing. And I loved it. And even if I don't book a job, my job every day as an actor is to audition. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love that process. So,
Absolutely. What I'm curious about, and because I never know if I got taught this, because like I loved my theater education and my bachelor's degree and my undergrad, but I don't know. Like they were teaching, how to be an artist on stage and all of the tools,
right.
less of like the business kind of stuff. What do you think is, and there's like a technique to auditioning versus when you actually have the job and are working on a character. So what is like the difference or the technique you learned towards the audition process?
I think the best way to approach an audition is to not think of it as an audition. To think of it as a first rehearsal. To think of it, and I worked with a lot of the Avenue Q kids and trained them in puppet work.
Yeah.
To do that show and those auditions, and the kids would come to me and they'd say, "Oh, I'm not a puppeteer. I'm not a puppeteer." And I'd say, "You'll never say those words again." And I'd say, "You've been working with me now, and I'm a professional Muppet. So, are you a puppeteer?" And they go, "Well, yeah, I guess I am." I said, "No, I don't like that answer. Are you a puppeteer?" "Oh, yeah, I'm working with a professional." But suddenly, it was their mindset that changed, and they were getting all callbacks. They were getting jobs, and they were booking the show because of their mindset. And it was a matter of just your belief system is everything, and that's really what you bring into the room. And in an audition, it's not an audition. And I go in there and I'll say to a director, "It's so nice to work with you," rather than, "Am I okay? Do you like this? Is this all right?" I go in there going, "It's so great to do my work today, and I'm so happy to see you." If it works that we should be working together, then I'll book the job. If it doesn't work out that director is not the right energy for me, or I'm not the right for that role, then I won't book that job, and I just have to accept that. And that's
Yeah.
what we all have to come to terms with, I think, as actors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's hard for someone who's fresh out of college, moves to a city like New York and is grinding at some kind of survival job. And you're just always seeking that kind of, that first off, your goal and the dream that you've got all this time invested in.
Right.
But then also this, that validation, am I good? Am I good? I definitely know.
Am I pleasing you? Am I okay? Is this all right? You know what? You are all right. And what you are is right. And what you bring is enough. And that's what every actor needs to discover, is to play themselves. I've had actors in my classes who are Broadway actors who come in as voice actors, and I said, what you need to bring to the table is you. You are enough.
Right,
And
right.
you need to play you. And I had one actor, he was a well-known actor, and he played many roles on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he said, he actually began to cry, and he said, I realize I've never actually played myself. I'm always playing a role rather than being myself in that role. And that's key. And Meryl Streep says that beautifully. She says, I don't play other people. I go inside other people and find myself. And
Right.
that's the process we find as actors, truly.
Yeah, that thing that you can connect to that brings the character to life, and especially like her, because
Yeah.
I feel like she is one of those examples of someone that you go, damn it, that is a lot of craft and sheer talent going into that. Because I feel like there's certain people that always play like some variation on kind of a similar character, and then there are actors that you just kind of they disappear. And
Johnny
they're-
Depp.
and they're just
We don't really
and
know
they're
what he
just
sounds like. We've seen him so many different ways, and that's wonderful to see an actor who is a true character actor.
Yeah.
That becomes that character and finds yourself inside that. I'm watching the Verdon Fosse right now on television.
Oh yeah,
And I love watching, Michelle Williams. It's not she's imitating Gwen Verdon. She's becoming herself inside of Gwen Verdon. And that's why it works.
Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting to watch. An actor who can actually do that is exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the thing you said earlier about story, because that's really like the core of anything that I think you want to do in the entertainment business, especially. And I think that kind of gets lost. One of my favorite things, I was watching an interview with Akira Kurosawa, the Japanese film director.
Oh, yes, of course.
And the interviewer was asking him some sort of question like that. And he kind of talks, his answer was like, well, really, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but really the core of it is story. Like, you can sit with a pen and pencil and come up with and imagine and envision a story that turns into a film or TV series eventually. And that's also especially why I've found myself enjoying like Japanese animation so much lately, is
Right.
that there's the kind of they have the kind of like stories and just the kind of thoughts of like, wow, I've never seen anyone in America do that, or maybe they have and they're just not allowed to make it.
Well, the truth is with actors, too, is that we need to find the three sense kind of portals to walk through.
Yeah.
And that's your head, your heart, and your body.
That was such a revelation when I took your class, was hearing that head, heart, body.
Head, heart, and it's true. And many actors, well-known actors, are only head actors. They work from their head. They
Right.
read their lines. They learn their motivation. They memorize and they say their lines. But then you have to go down to your heart, and you have to ask yourself, what situation is this? Is this really about me and my father? Is this about my mother? Is it about my sister? What is this situation? And then you have to go to your body, because your body doesn't lie. It never will.
Yeah.
It gives you away. And if you really trust your body, where do I feel pain? Where do I feel joy? Is it my throat? Is it my neck? Is it my eyes? And that energy should be connected. And that's really what an actor has to find. And that flow allows us to find ourselves as actors, rather than trying to play a character, but actually being a character. And you're inside it because the character's thinking your thoughts. That's the difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Truly.
Yeah. So I kind of want to trace this. Are you from the New York City area? Where did you grow up?
I am. I actually was born in Nyack, New York, and then I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. But I started working as an actor at McCarter Theater in Princeton when I was 12 years old. And a play that was on its way to Broadway, and called The Confirmation by Howard Ashman, who wrote Little Shop of Horrors. He was 24. I was 12, and it changed my life doing that play, and I became a working actor at 12. And my parents really were not on board with all of that.
Oh, really?
No.
What did they do? And also, how was Trenton? Because my idea of Trenton is that it's violent
Yeah.
city.
It's you survive Trenton, you survive anywhere. It's
Gotcha.
not as bad as you think. Trenton was actually a lovely place to grow up. I grew up in Hamilton, New Jersey, which is just outside of Trenton.
Okay.
And it was actually an extraordinary place to grow up because we had a lot of theater. I was close to Philadelphia. I could go to auditions in Philly. I was close to New York. I could go see Broadway shows with my family, and so I did. And it was an incredible experience to grow up in New Jersey. So close to some incredible cities. Trenton's not as bad as you think.
Okay. Good.
Great
to know.
museum. It's a wonderful place, actually.
Oh, excellent. And
Yeah.
what did your folks do?
My father was a pilot. He flew for Dow Jones as a private jet.
Oh, wow.
And my mother was a children's book illustrator. She was an artist, and she designed textile designs, and she designed things like Wonder Bread wrappers, and she did curtains and all kinds of stuff in the 50s and 60s. And then started illustrating children's books, and a lot of the books that you grew up with through Crane Publishing, school books, she would illustrate those books. And I'm always excited to see my mother's drawings and artwork. I go into bookstores and look for her stuff to this day.
Oh, wow. I wonder if I've read or my mom read any books that she illustrated.
You might have if you went to school in the 70s or 80s, you know, or even early 90s. You saw some of her drawings in a lot of your school books.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I learned that your mom illustrated kids books I probably read, and then I learned that you voiced cartoons that I watched.
Yeah.
What a small world, right?
I also I'm a puppeteer. I work with Jim Henson.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s. I started working with Jim in 84 till 90 when he died.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting that a lot of the puppeteers today that work on Sesame Street never even met Jim. Don't really know Frank Oz because Frank is not part of that anymore. But I got to work with Richard Hunt and Dave Goles and Steve Whitmire and all the original Muppet folks. And it was very exciting at a time because I was helping to run the touring shows of a Muppet Show on Tour, Muppet Babies Live, Sesame Street Live. I worked at Sesame Place.
I saw Sesame Street Live.
Oh my gosh. And the cool thing was that we were in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, where Jim lived. So Jim and his family grew up right around the corner from Sesame Place. So I grew up knowing Cheryl Henson and Brian Henson and Heather. Heather was going to Villa Victoria, and I was working at Sesame Place. So her mother would stop by with Heather, and I'd watch our shows, and so I got to know Jane, and Jane brought me in for some puppet workshops. And then I started working with Jim doing body puppets. And I'd go to the Carriage House on East 69th Street, right near the Muppet Mansion. Most people don't know it's there, but it still is there. And that's where the headquarters for the Muppets were. And so I'd go into this little house. It was an old carriage house. And Jim would say, how does this body puppet work? And I actually workshop Baby Snuffleupagus for Sesame Street. And he'd say, okay, what do you need inside the costume? Okay, can you roll? What happens if you roll on your back? Can you jump in this? What does that feel like to you? What do you need in this? Does that hurt your neck? And he would bring me in to work on puppets, and I would workshop puppets for him because I was a dancer originally. And so it was really exciting to work with someone who was so creative, yet was not a taskmaster. He wasn't somebody who told you do this and you do that. He'd say, what do you do? And what can you do with this? And he'd hand you a puppet and say, how does this move for you? And that taught me a lot, too, about allowing the people around you to be creative in what they do and not force them to be something they're not. Often we see auditions where they say, you must be this and you must have this voice range and you're this age range.
Yeah.
And I often think if they would just let us be ourselves and audition, they'd get some better performances out of us.
Certainly. You don't have people like trying to play some character that they aren't.
Yeah.
And again, talking about like finding yourself in the character, it sounds like that was an early thing on. So working with Jim Henson sounds like it was a very collaborative kind of environment.
Incredible environment. And I still see Frank Oz at my gym.
Oh, wow.
But
He lives in New York?
he's been here lately. Yeah, he works a lot here because he directs a lot.
Oh, cool.
So if he's working like in Queens doing a correcting film, I'm in the movie The Stepford Wives, which he directed. And I remember he would give us notes with little papers that used to say Yoda says. So yeah, I've known him as a director and I've known him as a puppeteer as well. So quite an extraordinary man with an incredible vision for what the Muppets really is and should be. Truly. So
that's amazing. And Brian Henson, I don't know if I would ever meet him, but the Muppet Christmas Carol, the first Muppet thing that gets directed after his dad dies,
Yeah.
I think is an absolute triumph, and I watched that multiple times every
I watch it every
holiday
year
season.
too. I got to tell you.
Yeah, I
And
love
Richard
it.
Hunt also passed away just before the making of that as well. And the
Yes, he
film is
did.
dedicated to Richard
Mm-hmm.
and to Jim, and they were both Statler and Waldorf originally.
Yeah.
And so when we lost them, it was interesting to hear those voices taken over, or those characters taken over. I don't think of them as voices. You think of them as real characters. So
Well, oh yeah,
Truly.
because not only just because I connected with those characters like from such an early age, and I was thinking about this also, like how senses are so closely tied to memory. Like you remember in Ratatouille where he takes the bite of the ratatouille and
Of
the
course.
critic transports back to being a kid,
of course.
and that's why he loves it so much. I feel like that's kind of the same way for me, at least for voice actors specifically. Like I somehow adjusted to different sounding Muppets, but when I would go back and like, because like I loved Pokemon when I was in 7th grade, and then Pokemon, it wasn't cool to like it, so I fell off. And now that I'm 30 and I don't give a shit about what anybody thinks about what I'm into, I'm back in. So I was like, they're still doing them, so I guess I'll watch. And it was like, and nothing against Sarah Nanachani, because she does a great job as Ash, but like it was hard to not hear Veronica Taylor as Ash,
Yeah.
because my memory is just so tied to the sound of that voice. And this is a really nerdy thing I do, but like there's like my favorite Pokemon, Snorlax, because I relate to his je ne sais quoi.
Yes.
And the new way that whoever is voicing Snorlax now does it from kind of like more of a chest, like Snorlax, whereas I liked the Snorlax, it was like more in the mouth. It was like Snorlax. Like it sounds like he's always just waking up.
It's so interesting. While we were, because originally Taj Productions was who hired us all for Pokemon. I go back to the very beginning of Pokemon, and then when 4Kids took over, I guess about 2003 or 4, that's when some new kids came in, and they were college graduates and went, oh, we're going to fire everybody and hire our friends. I got through that, but some people didn't last, and they replaced people. And since then, they've recast things, and they kept saying, Taj kept saying, you can't recast these voices. Kids know the difference. And it's true. And you're proof of that, because it was really bothersome to us that they were trying to replace voices because they wanted to work with their friends. So that was an unfortunate thing for 4Kids to do.
Yeah,
So-
that's the business side acting again. That's like in Ed Wood, when Ed Wood and Orson Welles are talking about they're always trying to cast their buddies even if they're not right for the part.
Yeah.
I wanted to trace this. So you were like a working actor at 12, and you're surrounded by the arts. Where does puppetry start for you? Because that was something I was interested to learn about you.
I back in when Sesame Street first started, I fell in love with the Muppets immediately. So I started building puppets, making puppets instantly, and I knew that my path had puppets in it. You know, it's interesting how dreams are in our life. Dreams are like weeds; they don't go away. And I think you either fight your dreams or you live your dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just one dream that I just embraced early on. And I've always been doing puppets, and I still do. I mean, sometimes I'm watching TV and I'll just say, this is boring. Go in the other room and start working with the puppet. You know, it's just part of who I am. And I love that work, and I love helping others to learn that work too.
Yeah.
It's always been part of me. But the first time I think was professionally was really working at Sesame Place in Langhorne, Pennsylvania.
And what was the job at Sesame Place?
I was hired as the dance captain there, and then I knew I wanted to get on the Sesame Street live tours, and instead they were starting a new show called The Muppet Show on Tour. So The Muppet Show on Tour started, and in that show we had live puppets besides body puppets. So I got to puppet Robin the Frog. Hey, Uncle Kermit, it's Robin the Frog. And part of and it was just really exciting to play some of the puppets as well as the body puppets too. The Muppet Show on Tour was a pretty extraordinary show. It didn't last long, but it was really cool, and the puppets were unbelievable. It was not as popular as Sesame Street Live, but it was kind of a hard audience to find because Sesame Street Live has kids.
Yeah.
Muppets were an older crowd, and it just didn't draw in the crowd, so it didn't last as long.
Yeah.
It only lasted about 2 years. But Bill Beretta came out of there. Bill Beretta was one of the puppeteers that was hired from Sesame Place to that tour, and now he then did Muppets Tonight, and now he's one of the Muppets. So yeah, so
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it all just kind of evolved from Sesame Street and loving Sesame Street as kids.
And how old were you when you were the dance captain at Sesame Place?
Just about 19 or 20.
Okay.
About 20 years old, yeah.
So that was like just out of high school?
Yeah. Well, that was 84, 83.
Uh-huh.
I graduated high school in 81, so.
Right.
Yeah, so.
You dance also. Is there nothing you can't do, Paul?
Dishes. I'm not good at dishes, but but I play piano. I'm also a pianist. And that affects the way I teach voiceover and the way I teach. And that way I voice direct. I also direct audiobooks and authors. I work with Author Direct Audio, which directs authors in their audiobook reads. And authors are not actors, so we have to really show them how to do mic technique and how to work.
Sure.
Do the basic work that we do at a microphone.
Yeah, 100%. Talking about not fighting dreams, that's probably what led me to your class, was like finally just realize, again, not caring what other people think about the things I'm into. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to, there's like years of anime that I haven't watched. I'm going to watch it all.
Yeah, why not?
And then I'm like, oh, well, someone's got to do the English versions for these. That's probably a thing people do. So again, just finding like, instead of chasing this like blanket idea of stardom or career success, working with what I'm interested in. Yeah, which has become voiceover in the past couple of years. Okay, so you're the dance captain at Sesame Place. So the idea is to get onto the tours. And are you still living in New Jersey at the time?
I'm still living in New Jersey, going back and forth to New York, and then I got to be dance captain. And then I got on the tour, and I was Baby Zucchini on the Zucchini brothers that used to shoot themselves out of cannons. And I was not a gymnast and not a roller skater, but I was doing both of those. And I got to be friendly with Jane Henson, and Jane noticed that I was also good at doing puppets and puppeteering, because just beyond body puppets, but hand puppets and lip sync and creating character. And so she started bringing me in for puppet workshops that she used to have at the Carriage House in Manhattan. And she started saying to Jim, you need to take a notice of this guy because he's good. And that's when I met Jim, and that's when I started working more with Jim directly. And I remember we had worked on Sesame Street, several puppets, and he said to me, I said, we worked on, Baby Snuffy. Is it, can I have this character? And he said, I have to tell you no. He said, there's so many male puppeteers on Sesame Street, so many male characters, Big Bird, Grover, Bert and Ernie, they're all male. We have no female characters except for Prairie Dawn and Fran Brill. So he said, we need to bring in a female puppeteer, and they brought in a wonderful puppeteer, Judy Sladkey, and she took over that role. I actually stood in for another puppeteer, Fred, who was playing Barkley the dog, and I stood in for him. And he said, but don't worry, I have another project coming, and another character that's perfect for you, and it's coming. Just be patient. And he died about 3 months after that.
Oh no!
And at the time, I was so hurt and so angry, but that was about me.
Sure.
But the gift that gave me was, I have these dreams to this day. Every so often, every few years, I'll have a dream, and Jim will come to me in a dream and say, I have this project for you. Come on in. And there's these cool puppets and these cool things, and it's just the most exciting dream. And to me, it's just my own psyche just telling me that there's always another place to go and another door to open. And there's something else coming in your life. And I think that's one of the great gifts that Jim always did, was to say, keep dreaming, keep seeking yourself out, because it never ends. It's always expansive, and we're all connected. He used to, if you ask Jim Henson why he created the Muppet movie, he would say to create world peace. And he wasn't kidding. He was in a time when Vietnam was happening and all these terrible things were happening, and Watergate and all this awful things in the 70s. So he created something that kind of brought everybody together, brought family back together. Yeah. We all sat and watched the Muppet Show together. And he really succeeded in doing what he did. And he kept evolving too. And so he's just encouraged all of those that have ever worked with him to do the same. Just keep finding yourself again and again and again, and keep evolving.
That's I never hear him say that, but oh my, I wish he was here so I could tell him thank you for that, because
We can thank him anytime.
yeah, because
Yeah.
because man, that's beautiful. It's like there's no end. Well, there's one ultimate end, but there's no end
Yeah.
to, like, when you if and again, if the dream if a dream happens, maybe that evolves and it turns into something
And I
else.
can help pass that on to your dreams too. So I think it doesn't end. I think we're all connected, and I think if we keep discovering and following our dreams, it just really it's never ending.
Yeah, I think so. So when when Jim died, was there a moment of, oh, what do I do? So now I've got to
Yes.
find out what to do.
Oh yeah,
next.
there was a period of anger. I was angry because he died of an aggressive infection.
Right. Well, and that could have been prevented.
If he had gone to the hospital sooner,
Yeah.
he was a Christian Scientist,
Right.
so he didn't go right away. They didn't tell the public that right away. I think the family was very protective not to tell that because they were afraid everyone would hate Christian Scientists rather.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't necessarily public information at first. So, but once I got past that, and once I grew past that, I went back into musical theater because I had kind of left musical theater, and I kind of left the Sesame Street puppeteers because there was now this fight for who's going to be the mainstay, and so I kind of moved on, and I could have stayed there, but I felt like just staying with that group on Sesame Street was kind of a trap.
Right.
That's all I would ever do, and there was so much more I wanted to do. So I went back to theater, went back to doing more voiceover and doing more on-camera work and stage work, and it's brought me all over the world, and it's been very exciting.
And so what were some of the shows? Because I came to musical theater late. What really captured my imagination was the rock and roll musicals like Rent or stuff like that. Or when I was in high school, what did I did lots of Fosse. I did the Pajama Game.
I did that in high school as well.
I was Mr. Hassler, so I was the jerk boss who didn't want to give everyone a 7.5 cent raise. So
yeah.
it was fun to play a villain, and then I was also because then again I am always like, hey, what's the tall role in this thing? So any number can die. I was the tall Edgar's the tall guy, or singing Crazy for You. I did Crazy for You. So what really drew you to musical theater, and then what was some of the things you were doing?
Well, I did 42nd Street. I did chorus line for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting because I was up for the original Crazy for You back in 1993.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and I know and danced and came very close to getting that show many times. But chorus line was dear to my heart because it ran for so long, and it kept me through the 80s of just going, this is a show I'm going to do. And I'd go see it. I'd go stare at those names in the program, memorize those names, and now they're all part of my life because I eventually did get the show, and I got to travel around the world doing that show.
Oh, wow. Where did you go?
I played Canada. I played Europe. I played all over the United States. And I played Atlantic City. And I met the most incredible, extraordinary people in my life. I also got to work in Nashville, Tennessee. In '88, I was cast at Opryland in Nashville. I was up for a Broadway show called Jerome Robbins Broadway. I was on my 6th or 7th callback, and I was getting so frustrated that I didn't get the show that I thought. And so I was offered this job at Opryland at a theme park in Nashville, Tennessee. And I took the job, and I packed my car, and I moved to Nashville. As I got to Nashville, my mom got a phone call saying that they wanted me back for an 8th callback. And I said, tell them I moved to Nashville. I'm not going. And it's always haunted me that, I probably would have gotten the show, but I wouldn't have met the extraordinary people that I met in Nashville, Tennessee at Opryland. And I got to work with Dolly Parton and Minnie Pearl and Lee Greenwood and the Mandrell sisters. And I got to sing backup for all those folks in clog. I was a clogger on the Opryland stage. So I've had a lot of different careers all based on the same thing, but they're all kind of just, exploring different venues. I don't like getting stuck in one thing.
Sure.
I like moving around and keep keep exploring what else I can do, where else I fit in.
Absolutely. I've never spent any time in Nashville, but I hear Nashville's a really cool city.
Extraordinary city.
I want to go.
And it's not just country music. It's all kinds of music. It's a right-to-work state, so everybody records there. Classical singers there. Dancers come in and film there. Balanchine used to come down to the Opry House where they did Hee Haw. Is where he filmed Baryshnikov doing Prodigal Son in the same soundstage. So it's an extraordinary place. I love Nashville, Tennessee.
That's amazing. I'm trying to think other really good big music cities I've been to. I love
New Orleans, Chicago.
I love Chicago. Chicago has so many like different kinds of scenes.
I worked at Second City there. I after I finished Chorus Line, I said, okay, Atlantic City. I was going to move to Chicago. I wanted to join Second City. I had to audition for Saturday Night Live, and Lorne Michaels said, "You're good, but you need more improv underneath you." And they were looking to replace Dana Carvey at the time, and he said, "Go work at Second City sometime or get some improv." So, and we didn't have UCB back then, so I just moved to Chicago, packed my car, and in '93 I moved to Chicago, and I started living there, and I got into the school there, and it was extraordinary. I mean, it was incredible. And Tina Fey was in the company then, and so was Steve Carell, and so was Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert, yeah.
And the Nia, who did My Big Fat Greek Wedding, worked in the box office. Couldn't even get in there, and she was extraordinary. And so I just had a great time in Chicago. But a lot of music. The people in Chicago are extraordinary. I just had the best time. The worst part of Chicago is the weather.
Right.
That cold, I couldn't last.
Couldn't handle it. No, I
got out of there.
I understand completely. Wow. So you were there at this almost like kind of like. There's so many heralded times about who was at Second City at different times, but like that's a murderer's row of pop culture.
Yeah,
right now.
Right now too. Especially. Yeah.
And so you auditioned for Lorne Michaels for SNL.
I did.
Yeah. Wow. Tell me about that.
Well, it was interesting because I auditioned at a time, and I remember that Jim Carrey also auditioned and didn't get it.
Yeah, I remember it.
And I remember that going in there, and I remember auditioning, and there were a lot of great people that auditioned that didn't get it. And it was, again, when you turn an audition into a positive spin, booking it is not the end. The experience of the audition and meeting those directors and working with those people is extraordinary. To get to do what you do in front of them, that's what it's all about for me. So to get to do that and meet Lorne and say, okay, let me do my thing, and to get some critiques by him and say, you need more of this, you need more of that, tells me that I have something worthy of his attention.
Yeah.
So I had an extraordinary time during the audition process.
Wow, that's so
even though
cool.
I didn't get it. But it led me to some other things. And now, in what I do as a voice actor, I use a lot of improv in what I do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we kind of discussed that a little bit in class because my background is in stand-up, and, it's not the main thing, but there's certainly improv elements to to stand up, and then again the sort of the wry and dry delivery
and most voiceover copy is written with a stand-up comic in mind. It's written in that kind of delivery. So when you understand the wry and dry delivery, or you understand how to deliver the musicality of a commercial copy or creating an animated character, that you learn that doing stand-up too.
Absolutely. I'd always thought because a lot of people tell me I have like this like NPR like kind of like low radio like sexy radio voice.
Oh wow.
So when I'd heard that phrase Ryan Dry, I was like, oh, I relate to that. I wonder if that's what my voice is like. And I also thought, and I kind of want to trace how your growth into voiceover also, but I didn't realize the difference between being a commercial actor and just being an announcer, like all right, boys and girls, let's keep it light and sexy tonight on WPLJ.
Well, the truth is connecting behind that thought and think about who you're talking to.
Right.
Because an announcer just talks. But when I'm really talking to somebody I know, and I'm connecting to somebody with somebody in mind, and I see their eyes, the delivery is different.
Right.
So that's what makes an NPR person sound like they sound, because they're so aware of how they sound, rather than really talking to somebody they know.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, that's why I like podcasters like Mark Maron. I don't know if you ever listened to his, but his monologues, he's always like, he's basically decompressing everything that's on his mind in the first 10 minutes of each episode. It's fascinating to listen sometimes because he's gotten to like when he's had like bad breakups, he's almost tearful on the mic. It's fascinating character study of a human. That's kind of why I like doing this, because like this kind of an interview is not like like a magazine QA article or like a news interview.
Yeah.
I feel like we're just kind of having a conversation.
Yeah, totally.
So you're in at what point do you get into New York?
Being 12, the play that I was coming in, I did that play that came into New York. It went to Philadelphia, it went to Boston. It was called The Confirmation, which starred Herschel Bernardi. And Herschel Bernardi was the voice of Charlie the Tuna. Tell him Charlie sent you. He would talk like this to me. And he'd say, hey, it's Charlie the Tuna. And he was the voice of the Jolly Green Giant. And he was the voice of... he did a lot of voiceover. And I was 12, and we'd sit in the green room eating, I remember, buckets of chicken. And he'd say to me, you're a really great mimic. He would give me something, and I'd imitate him. And I loved imitating his Charlie the Tuna. And then, so he said, one day you're going to be a voice actor. So that was always in my head.
Yeah.
That as an actor, I will always work, and what my mainstay would be being a voice actor. Between films, between shows. And that always completely became the truth. And that's what, spurred me on to say I'm going to be a voice actor. And I was a little scared of it for a few years. And once I finally came back from Chicago, I said to a friend, I said, I really want to get into voice acting more. I've done a lot of puppet work. And she said, no, you don't. I said, what? She said, if you wanted to be a voice actor, you would be one. But you keep saying you want to be one, but you're not. And that terrified me. And I went, she's right.
Right.
Within a week, I was in a class. Within 2 weeks, I was already working on my demo. Within 3 weeks, I had already gotten a manager. So it was really exciting to go, you know what? You need to use all my training as an actor to keep going forward as a voice actor now. So I've embraced that for, 20, 30 years, 30 something years. And it's really been exciting.
Yeah.
So
and now this is the question that's also / career advice when when you started going into voiceover, did you start with commercials and go to animation, or what was the process?
I knew I wanted to be in animation, and one of the first jobs I auditioned for was Pokemon, and they loved me right away, and they auditioned me to play Ash, and they liked this character was kind of here, and they went, we love this kind of gruff character you have. And so they started moving me around, and they said, how would you sound as Meowth? And I kind of created Joe Pesci kind of thing, and they liked that. And then they moved me around, and then I the money wasn't good, I got to tell you, in the beginning. And so I stepped out of it for a while and came back. And when they were creating Professor Elm, they said, we've had you in mind, and will you come and do this role? I said, absolutely. Yeah. And so I went in and I worked, and close friends in the business, or at the time, was Stuart Zagnett, who was playing Professor Oak, and I play his protege, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man, a wonderful actor that I respect so much. And we played, protege of Professor Oak, so it was
because Professor Elm is he's so like if Professor Oak's like the first professor in the games and anime, I believe Professor Elm is like, Chikorita, Totodile, and and Cyndaquil. Those were the starters during that season.
Yeah.
God, I'm such.
That was one of the first jobs I booked.
Was Pokemon.
Yeah, and I went to the audition and booked it right away. And that really, I started there, and then I started going into more commercial work, and then I started booking, like I did all the Claret and Clear commercials. And I did IBM, and then I did a lot of on camera at the time too. I was the New Jersey Lotsie man. And I was the Snapple guy. I was the one that replaced what was her name? There was a woman, the Snapple lady, that got replaced.
Oh, was that the woman with curly hair? And like the idea of the commercials was people would like write in like, I love Snapple so much, I'm not lying, and then they're like, well, we'll see that, and then they come out and take a lie detector test.
And she actually was an employee of Snapple, and I replaced her when they got rid of her, and everybody hated me. Not me, but they hated that they got rid of her. So,
Sure.
So, but
It's like if they got rid of the honey bunches of oats lady.
exactly, but and then it's interesting. I did some on-camera film work. And I didn't love that process, although it was very successful.
Right.
I just I worked with Hal Hartley. I worked with some wonderful directors. I just didn't like that you'd go and do a job and you'd go home and then 6 months later, a year later, you'd go see a film and it'd be all cut up to shreds, and you're like, that's not the full performance I did. So for me, film work is not as satisfying as doing like stage work.
Yeah.
Or voiceover work. Voiceover work, there's less editing that goes on. It's written and it's there, so you're not going to get edited out.
Exactly. Or if you're doing like dubs, the animation's already set.
Yeah, exactly. It's there, so it's not going to get cut out. But as a voice director, I love directing other actors too. And if I'm not performing, if I'm directing, I'm satisfied. I don't have to be the star. I don't have to be, the front and center. I love helping other actors shine too. I love that. And that, I think, comes from the camaraderie I got from musical theater. It's all a family. It's not about any one performer. We all work together, like Chorus Line.
Yeah.
We all work as one, and you create this full piece together. It's not about any one performer. It's all of us together.
Yeah. That's kind of the impression I always got, like, anytime they do like a documentary on Rent or something, because I'm like, Anthony Rapp, if you're listening to this, I want you on. There's it, like, so like film shoots to me were always kind of felt like camp. Like, you have fun at camp, but then everyone goes their separate ways.
Right.
And then next summer, people change. If the thing has changed, kind of, which is the final product.
Right.
But musicals always feel like, this is a crew, and like we're gonna support each other, and we're gonna get through this thing, because it's like 8 shows a week on Broadway, right?
Yeah. When we were in Atlantic
growing.
City, we did 12 shows a week of A Chorus Line. 12 shows a week, 1 day off. You work 6 days a week, and 2 shows a night. It was not a matinee and a night show. You had a 6 and a 9 o'clock show. It couldn't be cut at all. It was intense, and we did that for a year, and it was intense, but we loved every moment of it. It was great. And, you're young, you're happening, and it was exciting. Performing is performing, and I think it just feeds us. That's what we have to do.
I think so. That's why I can work and record this, and then work in this on other people's podcasts like all day, because it's just I live for this stuff.
Yeah.
What are some things that you did the voice direction for that I might not know about? Like how did you go from acting into directing?
I was working on a series called Pinky Dinky Doo for Disney, and they were helping to create a new animated film for Disney. And they asked me to work with some Broadway folks who were auditioning. And there were 2 people, I don't necessarily, I should say the names, but Betsy Wolfe and Josh Gad were both Broadway actors. And I was asked to work with them. And so I started working with Broadway actors, training them to do Disney work. And we were working on The Ice Princess, which became Frozen.
Sure.
And I got to go into the studio and start to work with them, and I realized I really loved helping actors find themselves within a character.
Yeah.
And so so through that process, I began to realize I could do more voice direction. So then I started directing, doing some audiobook direction, and I really wanted to do more animation voice directing, because it's just so exciting. And then, of course, I teach classes, and I get to direct so many actors every week. Every night of the week, I'm in class with actors, voice actors, helping them find themselves. And it's not that I find just people on the street. I work with great actors, TV actors, film actors, Broadway actors, and watch them really grow into great voice actors too.
Yeah,
So.
and absolutely. And I think you're an amazing teacher, because I thought, like, okay, I went to college for 4 years, education done, nothing, no other information is required. I got it all done, and I read so many stuff, like all those, like Prepare to Live in New York City kind of books, that for the longest time I thought anyone who's trying to teach you in New York is going to scam you in some way.
Oh my gosh!
And then I had enough of my friends who comedian friends who do voiceovers as well, saying, no,
Yeah.
you don't have to think like that, and you should check out Actors Connection. They're legit. And then I did the one class with you, and I feel like I learned as much, if not more, in 3 days about the craft, and actually learning that there is craft to doing commercials.
Oh, truly.
Like, I don't, if I could go back and talk to my 21-year-old self, who was like really steeped in like punk rock and Fugazi and all that stuff, and crying sellout at everyone who's more successful than me, I would say, you know what, there is art to doing commercials. It's not just all kabam, pow, spray cleaner.
Or fool people, yeah.
Yeah.
We're creating art. That's the way I look at it. The work that we do is art, and it's like mini films. People say, "Oh, I hate commercials. I hate commercials." I hate commercials too when I'm watching YouTube and it pops up in your face. But to see a great commercial, we all love to buy things. I said to you, "You want to go shopping later?" Yeah, let's go shopping. Love to go shopping. When we know we're being sold something, we love to watch something that we want to buy, a car ad. When commercials are done right, they're brilliant. And to have great actors working on them, and not just voices, but actually great actors, that's the highest level of commercials. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I agree completely. Open my eyes. Some other things I'm curious about, and this is leading into when I have the money, I will take your animation class, because that's what I found. What I really want to do is I don't know how to get an agent or any of that stuff, but I know that I want to do animation. I want to do animation. What so you did Pokemon, and what were some? Did you have someone that taught you like animation techniques and what certain studios look for, or did you just kind of discover that?
I took several classes. I took classes from a lot of people, and a lot of fellow actors, and a lot of casting directors. I took many classes, and I learned as much as I could from everybody. And even when I was in Chicago, I learned while I was there. In Nashville, I was learning while I was there. So I've learned a lot from a lot of different sources. And I learned a lot from Jim Henson, and I learned a lot for creating character. And what I learned mostly is having talent is a gift. We all have talent.
Right.
Having skill sets is everything. What you do with that talent and how you handle your skills, that's what makes you the actor, and that's what sustains a career.
Yeah.
So if you might book a job because you sound or look like somebody, but to actually book and book and book and book, that takes some skills.
Right.
So building those skill sets is crucial, and there's a lot of coaches out there that they're technicians and they're great, but they're not acting teachers. I'm different in that way. I don't consider myself a voiceover coach. I consider myself a voiceover acting teacher. And my classes I don't do one-on-one. I don't Skype. I teach group classes with everybody in the room, learning from each other, watching each other, and encouraging each other. I'll say, what did you think of that performance? And what did you hear? Not just my opinion, but everyone's in that room. Their opinion matters. And then we all start to learn together. And that's what's exciting about, learning.
Yeah. And definitely like the being in person aspect of it is so important, because it's hard to you can't really learn. You can maybe learn and take notes over Skype, but like actually being in a room with people that also want to be there, and you're hearing it
and seeing
and seeing it and experiencing it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely critical to the form as a whole. One thing I didn't get a chance to ask you in class is we talked briefly about like the various like voice acting styles for like Nickelodeon's, like maybe a little bit more up here, a little like wacky, zany kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I can't remember what you said about Disney and like that.
Disney
stuff.
characters are very bright. They're bright-eyed.
Yeah.
Very forward in the mouth.
Right.
DreamWorks, the characters are a little further back in the mouth. They say things that you would never hear in Disney. With Nickelodeon, there's a lot of change of energies. I'm inside my head. Now I'm external. Now I'm internal. Now I'm over here. Nah, thinking this thought. Now, here's a thought. Now I have this one. So
it's
you're
like
not
a G version of being Golem.
Yeah, it's not it's not schizophrenic. It's just that you're going internalizing and externalizing your thoughts. And that's what most voice actors miss in all of voiceover, is everything is external rather than internalizing a thought, or this is it. This is what matters. You're inside someone's head when you're in that internal energy,
Yeah.
rather than trying to project out and letting the microphone do all the volume for you. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
something that I found very freeing when even just compared from stage to film, because, stage you want to play to the back of the house, but like film, you can kind of be like right here, and it's like, or especially if you've got like your voice in your head, and it's like, it's much.
Film is about the eyes.
Yeah.
Stage is about the body.
Mm-hmm.
Voiceover is about connecting all of those, head, heart, and body, in just sound. And you can't neglect any one of the three portals. You can't neglect the body. If I talk like this and I don't move, you hear it. But if I talk
sound
like
more
this
tense.
and I move, it's so simple.
Uh-huh.
And our job as actors is to make everything sound effortless and easy. This is so simple. It's not. But that's what our job is. And that's what a dancer does. That's what a musician does. A singer, you make it look so easy so that everybody watching goes, oh, that's easy. I could do that. That's our job. But it's not the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same way when I'm on stage, I like to, it's like I'm throwing these very hilarious lines off like it's no big deal, but a lot of humiliation in it not working has gone into it being
And you've rehearsed those.
good right now.
You've tried those in other audiences. That audience doesn't know that. And that's okay, as long as you deliver it in a way that they don't know that you're creating it in this moment. It works. Totally.
Absolutely. Have you ever directed English dubs for anime at all?
I've not directed those. It's funny because there was a point in Pokemon where they wanted to move me up as a voice director for Pokemon. But again, the money was not good, and at a time when I was starting to get Disney and other things, so I kind of turned it down. They also had some of us writing some of the translations. Some of the original actors were actually writing those translations, and that was interesting because often when you're doing Pokemon, you don't see the script until you're reading it.
Right.
Because there's something called Digimon that was out there. And
I remember Digimon.
There were moles in the cast, and they would go and call Digimon and say, here's the new character, here's what he says, this is what she sounds like, and here's the new names. And they would sell this information. Now they can tweet it out. But
sure.
So they were very careful with letting us see the scripts. Until we were speaking, you didn't know who you were talking to. So you saw the script, and you go, record. And then you're matching the lip flap.
Uh-huh.
It's a tricky process. And there's beeps in your ears because it's ADR. So it's replacing the dialogue. So you're hearing 3 beeps where the 4th beep would be is when you start speaking.
Okay.
So there's constantly beeps in your head whenever your dialogue is coming up. So it's a little nerve-wracking until you get used to it. So it's a while of adjustment.
Wow.
So
yeah. And then you have to basically match up. Like the script has to match up to whatever the original syllable count
and it
was.
never does.
Yeah.
So sometimes they'd stop and they say, okay, how could this character say this phrase? And we'd actually help write some of the lines. We'd say, well, you could say this, or Elm would say this. He wouldn't say it this way. He might say, and they would trust us. And so they would let us sometimes help to write the English to match it. I always love when the character would walk off camera, because then I could talk for I didn't have to match in lip flap, and I could say whatever I wanted to say, and how I wanted to say it. Back on, with a lip flap, and when they're back on camera, so to speak, you really have to match that lip flap. So it's you were waiting for those moments when you're off camera and speaking.
Yeah. It sounds like such a complicated dance, and I think about like
well, being a puppeteer, it wasn't, because I was so used to doing puppet work. I love that process, and it was an easy process for me. I took to it so quickly, and I could jump from character to character very quickly too, because I was used to doing puppets. So for me, it was an easy fit. So I loved that, and I still love it.
That's awesome. The thing I wanted to say was I think about the original Dragon Ball Z dubs, which is like 90%.
Well, they would give us
how can you teach that?
You can actually. I teach in my video game class.
Okay.
I talk about closing the glottis. If you said uh-oh, say uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
When you say you close the glottis. So if I have to scream, I go I can scream with the glottis closed. What I can't do is this, with the glottis open. The glottis is a space between the vocal cords. So I actually have to teach my actors how to scream, how to yell, how to climb, and make what we call efforts, sounds that we make with the glottis closed. Because if I do that with it open in 5 minutes, I have no voice.
Right.
So it's how to yell, how to scream. Rock singers have to learn it too.
Mhm.
How to perform without hurting yourself.
Yeah. There's someone who works here on the West Coast who sings for a like a metalcore band. So it's lots of like that kind of
Well,
thing.
you work on a glottal fry.
Yeah.
There's something called a glottal fry, which is very relaxed throat, and you learn how to work it so it sounds like you're really screaming and frying the chords when you're really not.
Right.
You're gently rubbing them together with a relaxed throat, like a yawn. That's the feeling. So the back of the soft palate has to be open. It's technical, but
Yeah.
there is a certain technique to it, and rock singers study it too, truly, especially the heavy metal bands.
Oh yeah.
3 seconds of that, and you're,
You can't get through the
you
show.
can't speak, or you're bleeding.
Yeah, exactly.
But there is a way around it to create that illusion that you are screaming when you're not. Truly.
Is there a show or a project that you haven't worked on that yet that you really want to?
Oh my gosh. There's always some wonderful projects coming up, but there's a lot of ideas that I have in my head that I'd like to work on. And there's some wonderful, wonderful programs I'm seeing that are coming out that I'm going, gee, I'd love to be part of that. David Rudman has a group called Spiffy Pictures, and they're doing some great puppet work, and they have a show called Nature Cat on PBS. I just love what they're doing, and interesting work. I'd love to go in and help with my knowledge and help even improve some of what they're doing too, and do some direction there. I'm on, if you go to curiousgeorge.com, I'm George, and I'm the man in the yellow hat there.
You're the man in the yellow hat?
I'm the man in the yellow hat, and George.
Oh, nice. My
Yeah.
my fiance's nephew's might lose his mind when he.
Well, you're gonna love it even more because they have games you can play, and you go
cool.
there and we read stories, and it's different than the PBS version because it's back to the original George from the publishing house. Harcourt Mifflin created this website, and it's award-winning. It's a beautiful website, and you'll hear me all over the page telling you what to do and navigating around as the man in the yellow hat, and then as George, and then you play all these different games, and you talk through it, and it's interesting because I had to kind of create an amalgam of the man in the yellow hat from what Will Ferrell had done in the film, and Frank Welker does in the PBS version, and like Will Ferrell will say, George, he swallows the word George. So I'll say, let's help George find his way, the way that Will Ferrell would say it. So it's kind of an amalgam of some of the other versions, but my own again on top of that.
Yeah.
So go to curiousgeorge.com.
Yes.
And you'll find that wonderful, wonderful award-winning website.
Absolutely. And then just bringing yourself to the character of George and the men, the
Truly.
yellow hat.
Everybody you play is never a voice. It's always yourself is in there.
Yeah.
And you're always thinking the thought. It's not just, here's the line I'm saying. It's, I'm inside it thinking that same thought. I've also done the Fruity Pebble commercials. I was, hey, Fred, it's Fruity Pebbles. It's my Fruity Pebbles. And I got to play Barney back in the late 90s. And it's interesting because when I play it back, I don't hear my voice. I hear Mel Blanc's voice in my head.
Yeah.
But it's I'm informed by his version, but I'm inside that thinking the thought too.
Right.
And then there was Dawes Butler's version of Barney. Remember Barney? Hey, Fred, it's there was another version of it because Mel Blanc was in a horrible car accident, and Dawes Butler came in for a while, and that's why Barney changed. And then Mel Blanc went back, and then of course when we lost Mel Blanc, somebody else had to take it over. So
Right.
There've been several of us. So
Wow. Well, man, that's amazing. That's amazing. It's amazing to think that I've probably been hearing you most of my young
and seeing
adult
me. I've been on
and,
camera
and,
too.
and seeing you in things. It's incredible to see how like full circle, because this is like full circle for my life.
It's interesting because I love not being recognized. I love being, when we walk out of here, I'll walk on the street and no one has any idea who I am. And I love that. I love that I can go home and no one has any idea who I am. And then I get to go and, and play incredible roles and sing songs and it's a creative life, and I love living a creative life.
Absolutely. And I'm also thinking for your craft, I think that's actually beneficial, because I watch tons of movies with like Tom Cruise, and I never see the character Tom Cruise is playing. I just see, oh, Tom Cruise is trying to kill Hitler.
Right.
Oh, Tom Cruise is trying to get the secret plans or what have you. But like being able to like truly inhabit the character, I think, is and I found so much knowledge from taking your class, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me,
Absolutely.
Paul.
I'll just tell anybody listening too,
Yes.
if you are interested in classes, actorsconnection.com, go to classes, go to voiceover, and you'll find me in there, Paul Liberti. But also, I teach accents for actors.
Mhm.
I've worked on film sets and on stage with the cast of My Fair Lady. I've worked with several of those women that have played Eliza Doolittle, going from High Brit to Cockney and backwards.
Right.
We also talk about it exactly as music. So, so when you're doing a British, so if I'm doing a British accent, I must flatten the note slightly.
Right.
So it's a little bit flat in the note. Even a high-educated sound.
Still
Or
a
I can
little
go
flat.
I can go a little sharp in the sound, too. I can go up here. So it's not just where we speak in the full of the note, the way a singer does.
Indubitably.
The center of the note. So it's learning the musicality in voiceover, too. That's different, too. Where else do I teach? I teach animation, a couple different animation classes. I teach promos. I teach, what else do I teach? Commercial voiceover. I have an intro class, and I have a more advanced class, too.
Yes.
And I've been teaching in L.A. I've been teaching around the country for SAG-AFTRA.
Oh, cool.
For the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. And they send me around. I'm going back to Detroit. I just got back from Florida.
Oh, cool.
I was teaching in Solvang with Debbie Derryberry, who's the voice of Jimmy Neutron.
Oh, wow.
And my friend Randy Thomas, who's the voice of the Oscars and the Tony Awards. And three of us taught in this wonderful little home in Solvang, California. Mm-hmm. I've taught out in L.A., and I plan to go much more often to L.A. I'm loving L.A.
Yeah. I've spent a very brief amount of time out there, but some of my favorite shows get dubbed out there, and some of my favorite voice actors are all out in LA. So
yeah.
I've got plans for getting the English dub casts of my favorite shows.
Yeah, just going out there, spend a couple months out there, and just do
a
bunch of podcasts. You'd love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because so many of my friends that I remember from like the open mic days that are like on TV now, like Adam Conover on the show Adam Ruins Everything.
Okay.
Just want to sit that. Yeah, I would love to get out there, record a bunch of episodes, get stuck in traffic a bunch, and chill on the beach.
Yeah.
This has been great, Paul. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, and I will see you for animation class.
I will see you soon, very soon.
Sounds good. That was a really interesting and an amazing conversation. And if you want to take a class with Paul, Actors Connection is the place to look, and as well as the other places that he mentioned. I'll have links in the description. I'm going to take a class with him, and I'll sign off on my experience. I found it quite informative, the class I took with him, and enjoyed it quite a bit. So if voiceover is something you're interested in, I would recommend taking a class with Paul. And guys, that's the show for this week. I'm still processing some of the stories that Paul told me, because I thought it was really, really interesting and fascinating to hear him talk about some of the experience he's had over his career in show business. So I'm going to continue to process that. That is the show for this week. I appreciate you guys listening. If you enjoyed the show and want to tell a friend, that would mean so much to me. We're on iTunes and Stitcher. You can subscribe, add us to your favorites playlist. I'm on Twitter at Comic Will Carry. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at AwesomeDPod. And I will come and do stand-up in your city. If you and a bunch of your friends want to see me, we'll make it happen. You can get at me on Twitter at Comic Will Carry. Thank you guys again so much for listening, and I will see you next week between Awesome and Disaster. Take care, everybody.